Okay, hello everyone. Welcome. Thank you for taking your time to join us today. This is our first of a series of tournament director workshop we're hosting this year, where we'll touch on different areas of hosting tournaments. We hope to provide you with the necessary tools to host successful tournaments, so that you can also deliver a great experience for our tournament participants. Also on the call with me today is Joanna Broda Strunk. She is the adult tournament specialist, and she oversees adult tournaments. So for me, I'm overseeing junior tournament at USTA NorCal. This webinar is being recorded, so a recorded version of this webinar will be shared with you all at the end of our webinar in our follow-up email. If you have any questions during the webinar, please put it down under the Q&A, and one of us will get back to you. With that said, I'd like to introduce you to today's presenter, Peter Hall from ClubSpark. He is the Customer Success Manager overseeing Serve Tennis. All right, Peter, you can take it over.
Awesome. All right, thanks, Tommy, and thanks everyone for having me today. I see some familiar names on the attendee list, so some of you will know me, some of you won't know me, so glad to be here to walk you through the system. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Looks like, Tommy, I think if you're sharing, you need to stop and then perfect. I'll be able to go ahead. Okay, so just a pre-warning I like to do for everyone before I get in. I am going to be using our kind of stage environment. This is where we obviously test things before pre-release. Shouldn't be an issue, but you know, it's always fun. Sometimes stage goes down. I did a webinar earlier on and it decided to go down. So if it does, we've got backup plans, but we'll if we hit any error messages, don't panic. This happens fairly often in stage, unfortunately. All right, so got quite a lot to go through, and I saw some of the questions that you guys submitted, and the team at NorCal kind of sent me some kind of topics to cover. So we'll go through them, and we'll obviously kind of bridge the gaps a little bit. But right now in front of me, I've got a tournament that's already kind of been set up. We've got players that are registered, and now the registration is closed. So first thing I want to show you guys really is one, when you do selections, how you firstly charge the players. And then a good way to kind of go in and check to see, okay, did the payment go through? Because sometimes when players register, we do a quick check on the card, but you know, between the registration time and kind of the actual charge time, sometimes something can go wrong with the card. So sometimes it gets declined. And then I can kind of show you how to kind of look at the reports, see how much revenues come in, and then how to kind of send requests for any cards that failed. So first of all, I've got the tournament in front of me. You can see here registration has closed down here, so I know I can go ahead and kind of do my selections. So I'm going to come to the players tab up here at the very top. Now, once I open this up, you got to kind of see a screen of all the players across everything. Okay, and right now you're going to really see everyone is kind of not required, zero paid, zero amount due, and that's fine because right now they've just registered for the tournament. We've yet to tell them, all right, they're in this event, they need to be charged X amount of dollars. Okay, so before you do selections, don't worry too much about this. Okay, so we're going to navigate across to player selections, and then from here we can see the events which we're looking to do selections for. So I'm going to come and do my men's open singles. So I hit selections, and then depending on your level of tournament, depending on your kind of selection criteria, you're going to select kind of the selection method from this drop down. Okay, so again, if you're not sure of that, you know, Tommy and Joanna, those at your section office, they can kind of help advise you what method you need to be doing per the tournament you're running. Okay, for this purpose, because I don't have much player data in my stage environment, I'm just going to do WTN. Hopefully some of my players have a world tennis number. Okay, and then from here, of course, none of my test players do. Okay, but the players would then be sorted based on that criteria, whether it was ranking, NTRP, registration date, WTN. They're going to be sorted correctly. Now, the key here is just make sure if you're doing top down or bottom up, just make sure the arrow is sorted in the players correctly. Okay, I've definitely seen people do it the wrong way around. So I always just say make sure that the players are being sorted in the correct manner, whether it's top down or bottom up. From here, we need to move the players from unselected all the way over to the left, either in the main draw or the alternate list if it's going to fill. Okay, now you can either hover your mouse by an individual player, so you get that hand icon, and you can click and drag them across. Okay, accurate but a little bit labor intensive. So the other way is you can select everyone, because if you've got them in the correct order here, okay, you can select everyone and then drag them all across, okay, and it's going to keep the order you've already set up. If you need to make adjustments, you can kind of move them around. If let's say you accidentally, move players when doing this, you can adjust it. But more often than not, that's going to be sufficient to get them across from unselected to the draw status. And then would go ahead and would save. And right now, until I hit finalize, I could change it out. Okay, so I could suddenly be like, oh, I made a mistake. Okay, I don't want to do that. I can make changes. Okay, but once you finalize it, that's when it kind of locks it down. Okay, so once the event's finalized, now here you cannot really make any changes from that selection criteria. This is kind of locked until you get to tournament desk. Okay, now I'm going to toggle to my other event. I do have a doubles event. So what you will see in kind of the serve tennis when running a tournament, if you have multiple events, and you'll see this a lot in the adult space especially, some events won't fill, okay? In order to kind of charge the players and get into tournament desk, you will either need to finalize selections on an event, even if it didn't fill, okay? Or what I'd kind of recommend, especially in the adult space, if you've got 50 events sometimes in these adult events, you can actually come to the events overview. And as long as no players are registered in that event, okay, you can see here my men's doubles, there's no players. I can hit these three dots and I can hit delete. Okay, so this is a great way if you're not intending to run this event at the tournament because maybe no one registered, it didn't fill. I would say go ahead and delete them out and clear them off, because it just makes it easier on the public side, because they don't see kind of empty draws effectively or empty events. And if you're on the admin side, it kind of means there's less events for you to shift through. Okay, so that way the events you bring into tournament desk are the ones you're ultimately going to run. Okay, if you accidentally delete one and all of a sudden all the players rock up and say, hey, I want to play doubles, okay, they can always be added back in. Okay, but I always just say, a bit of housekeeping, clean it up beforehand. It just makes it a little bit easier for you and the admin side as well. Okay, so once all the events are either selected or deleted, depending on what you're doing, okay, you're now going to have this ability to go ahead and charge players. Okay, now what you'll see now is once I hit charge players, moment of truth. Okay, if I hit charge cards, okay, this is always fun. Okay, let's see in our stage environment. Let me just refresh this. Now, this is the one tricky thing with a stage environment and the test cards. Okay, what it should have done, if I come back here, okay, they all failed. Okay, perfect. So you can see here, this is actually a good use case. So I tried to set up multiple cards in our stage environment. Now, in test, it's hard to test between real and failed cards, okay? So if I come back 1 second to the player's overview, now, if the card had gone through, it would have said paid. You would have seen the amount paid as, $50 and the amount due, and that would hopefully match. Okay, so you would have seen, okay, myself, I played in the men's singles. I was due 50. If it all went through correctly, it would have been $50 paid, and this would have turned to paid. Okay, but because my card failed, okay, I put in like a fake card so I could register, but I knew it was going to decline. And by fake, I mean a fake test card, because again, I'm at a test environment. Okay, you can see the payment status is unpaid. Now, what I always recommend people doing is look across here. Okay, so once you've done your selections, okay, once you've hit that charge players, use these filters, okay, and you can filter across all events, so you don't have to do this for each individual event unless you want to. You can come along and look at, okay, all the selected players. Okay, so if you're selected, it means you're in the main draw, which means once you hit charge, you should have been charged. Okay, so as long as the player registered online, they should have been charged at this point. So now you can then come along and look at the status. Okay, if they paid, it means they're great, they're good, cards went through, you don't have to worry about it. Okay, if someone's going to say unpaid, okay, then that's kind of your hint to say, okay, something went wrong here. Okay, why aren't they paid? Okay, now here is kind of my next step is come along to the payments tab up here. Now from here, this is where you should see kind of your whole overall revenue. Okay, so you should see your gross, your net, and how many charges have gone through. And again, if you're already seeing these unpaid, I would then come into here as like your second check. From here, you can again look at the payment status, okay, or you can simply just look along, and this status, you can see someone's failed, okay. So if I click into details, you don't see too much information, but you can kind of see, okay, this was the basket ID. So if you ever need to raise this further, this is kind of the transaction ID that you would need to know. But then from here, whoops, let me come back 1 second, you know there's now going to be an issue with that card. So what we need to do in this case is you need to now send the player a request for payment, okay? Because their card initially didn't go through. We want to try and charge them again. So back to the player screen. You can then simply select the players you're looking to send that request to. Okay, so I'm going to select all of these kind of 4 players right here. I've now got this 3 dots option, and I can hit this request payment. Okay, so I've basically used my filters to see kind of all the unpaid status. I've selected the players. I can now come along, hit request payment, and I can see, okay, what the amount is. Okay, so just be conscious of this, that if you do bulk select and you potentially got players playing singles and doubles or just singles, I would send one request for kind of the required amount. So maybe send a request for all the players who are just playing singles, and then send a request for all the players playing singles and doubles if you want to do it in bulk. Because you can type in this amount to be whatever you want it to be. You can write a message. You can just say, your card failed. Please click the link to pay. You might be a little bit nicer than your card failed, click to pay. Okay, but you get the message. You can kind of put in some custom text here as to what you want to kind of send off. You can hit send request. Okay, and that players will get the email saying, hey, here's a link to payment. And now what you guys can do under the payments tab again, so I'm going to go back to this payments tab where you kind of all your kind of transactional records. You can now see, okay, these are all the requests of payment. Okay, when you see basket payment, this is basically the payment intention that the player made. Okay, they put the tournament in their shopping basket, they try to pay. That's why that's a basket payment. If it's request of payment, that means you physically send an email saying, hey, please pay. Okay, and then you can track all of those over here. So then once this person signs on and pays, this will toggle over from pending to paid. Okay, now what that email looks like, okay, is basically just an email saying, hey, click here to pay. Now, if you ever get players saying, hey, I'm not getting the email, can you resend it? You can keep resending payment requests. Or what I recommend doing is coming along to this mail icon up on the top right-hand side. Because if you open this, this is basically your sent box. Okay, so any emails that you send out of the system should be logged here. Okay, now let's see if this comes through again. Our stage environment can be a little slow. In real time, you would send an email, it's going to show. Okay, it might take a second or two to appear in our test environment. Okay, but let's see if I can find an earlier one. Okay, let me see if I can find one. And what you can actually even search is for a request of payment. Okay, perfect. Here is one. Okay, here's the one we sent. So if I click that email, again, I'm the end user. Okay, I can see that I've got the payment request here. This is the email that the players got. Okay. Okay. And now I need to go ahead. I need to click this link. So the players can basically click this link to pay. So you as a tournament director, if you want, can copy it, paste it, WhatsApp it to them, email it offline, or whatever you want to do to get this email, this link to them. Once they basically open that link up, let me just move the Zoom controls out of the way. Okay, once they get this link, they can go ahead and they can basically, this is their payment request. Okay, obviously I'm the parent in this case, so I've got a lot of email links. I can hit view, I can hit pay now, and I can go ahead and pay. Okay, so I'm going to process through this 1 second. Guys, I apologize. My daughter's home from school and she just ran into the room. 1 second. I'm so sorry, but that's while the payment goes through.
Yeah, I just wanted
Okay.
to know.
All right. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, perfect. So you can see here, this was the player. Okay, I've had previous cards declined. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and put in the payment request, the card that I know is going to go through now. If I hit pay, now I'm going to process through again. This is what the player is doing following that payment request. Okay. So that has now gone through. Player, I'm get kind of confirmed, but all right, this payment's gone through. If I come back to the back end, now if I refresh this payment report, moment of truth, you can see now we've got a charge through, one charge, and you can now see, okay, for Peter, the payment's gone through. You can see for the other people on my account, that still said it's pending because myself as the parent or the account owner, I only paid for myself. So you can see here, the player would have to kind of go for each one and complete that payment if it's like a parent registering multiple kids onto that program, okay? So that's kind of the payment flow. I would say as tournament directors, the key thing is look to see that the payment failed, trigger that request, and then if the players are still saying, hey, I'm not getting that, go into the email log and physically take that link and just send it to them. Okay, so that way there's literally no doubt of, hey, you got the email. The other nice thing in this email log, if you scroll over to the right hand side, you see the status. Okay, so you see if the email was sent. Okay, it's fine, they've not opened it yet. You would see if it's bounced. Okay, and what's also nice, you see if it was opened. Okay, so if you see it as opened and the player is still saying, hey, I'm not getting the email, not to point fingers, but you can see someone's opened that email. Okay, so there's ways to kind of track that and just kind of, use your best judgment in kind of nudging the players to make sure they actually go ahead and complete that payment. Okay. Now, going through as well, okay, if you add a player late, okay, you will need to send the payment request. Okay, that's also something to know as well. So if the payment fails, use that kind of check the failed, send the request. If you manually add a player late, then you will need to send them a payment request as well. And no matter when you add the payment, I misspoke there. If you add a player at any point in time, you need to send them a payment request because we do not have their card details on file. Okay, so let's say I've done my selections. I was just about to get into tournament desk and someone says, hey, I'm meant to sign up. Can I play? Okay, if you're able to kind of add them in, you can. There's a couple of ways of doing that. First way, from Serve Tennis here, we basically would come to the Players tab. We would come to all events and we select which event we're looking to add that player to. Okay, so in this case, men's singles. Now from here, you've got a couple of ways. You can bulk add players. This is more so if you're looking to add, 5, 10, 20 players at a time. All you would do is click bulk add players. You basically upload a CSV file just containing players' USD IDs, nothing else. Okay. Don't know how often you guys would be doing that. Typically, on this scenario, you're kind of adding 1 or 2 players on the fly. So I'm going to come back to the individual add method. So again, we're from players. We selected the event. Okay, and now we're going to hit add players. Okay, so add players, this allows you to basically search the USDA database. So you can either search by name or USD ID. So if I just search by name quickly, whilst this loads up, you can also choose to send the player a confirmation email when you add them or not. Up to you. It's always good to have that paper trail. Okay, so I'm going to select this player, let's say. I'm going to add them in. Okay, this player's already added. What's kind of nice, the system is smart enough that if you accidentally add someone again, they're already in. So let me select another player. Okay. And it's going to cycle through, and that player is now going to be added. Now, because I've added them after selections, this player is automatically added to the bottom of the alternate list. Okay, so they're not in the main draw, they're at the bottom of the alternate list. And again, now you can see here, this person is saying not required. Okay, if I have intentions to promote them into the main draw, whilst you're here, you might as well select that player and go ahead and do that payment request process just like so. Okay, so if you're adding them in and you know you're going to have space in the main draw, you know you're moving them in there, you might also send the payment request now whilst you're in Embraer. Okay, so that's kind of getting the payments. Sometimes people, kind of withdraw, request a refund. Now, if someone has kind of been charged and you need to refund them, okay, you will need to come back into that payment report we looked at, okay, that kind of financial log effectively. You will need to find their payment intent. And what's kind of nice, you can use this search. So if you've got a lot of players, you can come along in here, use that search. As you type it in, it's going to narrow down that player. Okay, so I'm going to select myself. You can see here, if they paid, you do have the ability to go ahead and hit that refund button. Okay, and you will note, okay, they paid 50, okay, but they're only getting they're not getting the processing fees back. Okay, so they're getting that kind of portion taken off. All right, so just something to note of there. But you can go ahead and hit refund. And now it's going to update the status like so to refund status complete. Okay, if for some reason the refund failed, it would flag up saying refund failed as well. Okay, so that's kind of some of the payment intents and kind of adding that late player. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, I'm going to switch over to another tournament I prepared earlier on. Okay, so another tournament I've done earlier on. This tournament, I've already done selections. Everyone's in. I've charged the players. I've checked the payments. We're all good. Okay. This time now I'm going to come into launch tournament desk. Okay. So I've done my selections. I've charged the players. I've published selections. Now we're going to get into tournament desk. Okay. All right, whilst that's loading, I do see some questions coming in. Okay, so Ray said, I think I asked before, but just want to confirm if I add a person in tournament desk an event they were not previously in, but were already in the tournament or paid, will it charge them? Okay, great. That's a great question. Okay, yes. So if a player registered publicly, okay, so they physically went in, let's say I'm playing the men's singles, I put my credit card in, and then I suddenly tell you, hey, I want to play doubles as well. If you move them into the doubles event, it will automatically charge them. You do not need to send the payment request because we've got their card saved on file. Okay, so basically the way to think of it, if a player registers, okay, and you've kind of charged them and you've got their card on file, we can kind of pull from that file. A way to check if you forget and ever not sure, under the players tab, okay, this is back in Surf Tennis, so not tournament desk, in the players tab in Surf Tennis. When you have your list of players, if you come along to the more columns, okay, we have this option here saying card stored, okay. Basically, if it's a yes, okay, you can see these are all no, okay. But if this was a yes, it means we have their card on file, we can charge them, okay. If it's a no, we don't have their card on file, we kind of aren't going to upcharge them, okay. So that way you need to have to be aware. So if you're not sure, come in here. If you see a no, you're fine to resend that request. If you see a yes, you need to, the system will charge them because you have that in the system as well. Okay. Great question. So, and I saw a couple of questions coming in about the partial refund fee. Okay. And obviously the refund also doesn't pull back head taxes. Okay. So this is something where if let's say there's a washout, the whole tournament's cancelled, what we can do, okay, is we can trigger refunds back for the full amount, okay, but that will need to come from kind of we need to kind of get notification from the section office, and that also needs to then go through USDA finance, okay. So let's say you're running a tournament and the whole thing gets washed out, okay, and you know you're in a section discuss and say, hey, you know what, we want to refund everything back to the players. Don't start processing refunds. Let customer support know. We can escalate it to the relevant people on the USDA National Finance team, and then they can process through. Okay, so if you're ever looking to do that, let us know. Okay, I believe when signing up, there is some print in there, but the players are made aware of if they refund. Typically, they don't get the full amount. It's kind of the amount minus the fee and the head taxes, etc. But if you ever need, for some extreme reason, that you know so the whole tournament gets washed out and you want to do a refund for everyone, the section agrees, whatever the policy is there, reach out, we can kind of escalate on our team. It's a bit of a manual process, but Stripe, USD National, they're the ones that can kind of trigger that process. Okay. So let's go through here. Okay, so let's come back into our tournament desk. Okay, so right here. So once we've launched tournament desk, okay, so now again, we can kind of, what's really nice with this participants tab, so a quick overview for those of you who've not seen it for a while. This is kind of the participants where you see all the players, you see all events they're in. What's kind of nice from here is you can kind of change the draw status of filters. So let's say you want to just do the selected players, you can kind of come along and just see the selected. Okay, if you want to just see alternates, you can do that and it's going to update that list as well. What's also nice from here, if you select everyone or the individual players, you have the option to send them an email. So some great communication tools. What's nice, you can put a custom reply email address in. So maybe you want it to go to the front desk or a kind of a group inbox. You can do that as well. You can also choose to send an email to yourself and to all your tournament staff as well. So again, some kind of paper trail again around all the communication going out. I think another really nice feature in here is the SMS. And I would say if you're not using this already, make sure you do. Okay, the fact that this lets you send a text to the players' phones is huge. Even if you just say, check your email, we just sent you an email, that's great. Okay, what you will note with this, you are limited to 160 characters, but you're not limited to how many texts you send. Okay, so you could send message 105, text send, message 205, text send, and so on. Okay, so this feature is great. Okay, and I'll be honest, it's actually an expensive feature in the back end, which you guys get access to for free. So if you're not using it, make the most of it because it's a really cool feature. All right, now I will say sometimes we hear players come along and say, hey, I'm not getting texts, what do I do? If you're ever in that scenario as a tournament director and the players are just saying, look, I'm not getting my texts, your texts, and you try that, first question to ask them is, have you ever blocked text from another tournament? Okay, because let's say I'm playing in Tommy's tournament and then I go and play in Joanna's tournament. So let's say during Tommy's tournament, he sent me like 50 texts and I was like, you know what? I want to mute this, and I blocked that number. Okay. That will still be blocked when I play into Joanna's tournament. Okay. It's kind of a general number across all tournaments. Okay. So that's the first kind of troubleshooting question. But if a player or parent is saying, I'm not getting a text, just see have they blocked the number. Okay. If they have, it's typically instructions how to unblock. If they're not sure, they can call customer care. If they said they've never blocked it, okay, and you verify what number they kind of did, they change the number when they registered, reach out to customer care, and we can kind of help get them unblocked if needs be as well. Okay. But the text message is a really nice feature to utilize. Okay. And then so from here, again, if you need to add players to a different event, you can go ahead and add players across. Okay. So you can come along, let's say, again, someone's playing in singles and you want to put them in doubles, you can go ahead and select that player or players and just quickly adjust what event they can go into. And you'll get eligibility information as well. So if a player's actually not able to play it, maybe you're trying to put a boy into a girls event, it would warn you saying, hey, this can't happen because of X, Y, or Z reason. Okay, so it's kind of nice and kind of checks and balances in there. Now, let's say we're all good. We're now going to go ahead and start creating some draws. Okay, so if I come along to events, these are all the events I have. Okay, let's start if I'm going to do my singles draw. Okay, so I open up singles and I can scroll down and I can see all the participants I have. Now, depending on my seeding criteria, I can kind of pull in the most relevant seeding list. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to do WTN, okay, because my test players have that data. Okay, but again, if you're doing seeding based on NTRP, ranking, play tracker, etc., you can pull in that relevant list just by clicking it to making sure it's kind of the one you want to pull. From here, you can then come seeding and you can auto seed by your criteria. Okay, so in this case, WTN. Now the system knows the draw size, so it knows how many seeds to place. So it's very, very simple. I would just seed, I get a confirmation, and then what I always tell people to do is, oops, you can see over here, we've got the seed column. Just click on it, and that way it's going to order the players as per the seed correctly. Okay, so it's a great way for you to just look across and see, yeah, all right, everything looks good. Okay, so that's kind of the automated way of seeing. Great, foolproof. It's going to kind of do the work for you. Now, if I click seeding, I can go ahead and clear it because the other method we do have is manual seeding. Okay, so if let's say, you know, there's a few reasons why you might do manual seeding, but for manual seeding, it is what it is. You can kind of do whatever you want. Okay, so you can literally, when you hit manual seed, you get this seed box. You can literally go along and you can type in your seeds. And now you can overseed, so you could give everyone a seed in theory. There's no checks and balances. It's fully manual, fully flexible. I could literally seed this player as player 2000. Okay, it makes no logical sense because the system is allowing you to kind of do whatever you want. Just make sure if you do manual seeding, make sure you hit save manual seeds, because if you don't hit that, whatever you put in there will not save. Okay, so make sure you hit that save manual seeding button. Okay, and then whatever seeds you put in there manually are going to be added. Okay, so I'm going to quickly just go back and let's just auto seed by WTN in this case. Okay. All right, super. And actually what I'm going to do now, okay, let's pretend that we're just before the tournament. Okay, I was about to make the draw. Someone calls me, says, hey, I'm going to withdraw. Okay, so at this point, I've still not made the draw. Okay, what I can do is select the player or players from here that's going to withdraw. And I can either move the alternates, okay, or more likely than not, hit the withdraw button. Okay, so I'm going to take those players out. The players will get an email saying, hey, you've been withdrawn from this event. Okay, and I get confirmation saying they've been withdrawn. Now, if I scroll down, I can see all the way to the bottom, the withdrawals. These are the players that were withdrawn. Okay, that's accidentally a mistake. Okay, I could click on that player and I can move them back into selected status. Okay, so I accidentally clicked the wrong player. I can move them back in if need be. Now, let's say I've got space now for someone from my alternate list to come into the main draw. Okay, I could simply select the kind of the number one alternate, but I'm moving in. Simply hit move to selected. And it's at this point, the system's going to kind of warn me saying, hey, this player is paid $0 because they were never in the main draw to begin with. They're going to be charged this amount of money. Now, this will tell you this message, even if you don't have their card on file. Okay, so all the players that I registered here, I manually added. So it's still telling me it's going to charge them, but it can't because I don't have the card on file. So this is where you need to kind of just be aware of any manual adds. Go back and check to see if that card was stored if needs be, and then send that request if needed. Okay, so I'm going to move that player in. Okay, now we're good to go. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to say I'm happy. Okay, let's go ahead and make the draw. Okay, so I'm going to hit draw. We hit make draw. I would say 99 times out of 100, you're just doing the main draw. Okay, so if you ever do qualifying draws, you can have qualifying enabled, but again, pretty much always going to be straight main draw. You can name the draw if you want. Okay, if not, it's just going to be called draw. Okay, then we're going to have our draw type, and you're only going to see the draw types that you're permitted to run based on the level of tournament you're running. Okay, so if you're looking to run, I don't know, compass draw, but it's not permitted for the level of tournament you're running, it just won't show. Okay, so you're only going to see what you're allowed to run based on your level. If you look at this and think it's a mistake, reach out to your section and they can advise you, you know, rightly or wrongly, whatever, you know, are you right or is the system wrong or vice versa? Okay, like, but I'd say most of the time everything's configured correctly, but there isn't going to be a mistake in that. Okay, so let's say I'm going to pick first match loser. Again, it knows the size. Okay, for some reason in my test environment, it's not picking up the number of seeds. It should have done that. Okay, I think there's an issue in our stage environment. Okay, so in production, it would say 8 seeds or the number of seeds based on the draw you have. Okay, there's an issue for some reason in this environment. Then you're going to select the score format. Again, you're only going to see the score formats you're permitted to run based on the level of tournament you're running. So again, if you're probably not going to have pickable score formats for a sanctioned event, okay, so you're only going to see what you're allowed to run based on the level. Again, if you're not sure, reach out to section, they can advise you. So I'm going to do free tiebreak. Then again, I want the draw to be automated. I don't want to put manual draws, so I'm going to have the system do the draw for me. So I'm going to have it automated, and I go ahead and make the draw. Okay. Now, because for some reason it's not picking up my seeds, okay, it's kind of, okay, it should always have the players seeded correctly. Okay, so the 1 seed is always at the top, 2 bottom, and vice versa. It's just a glitch in our stage environment. For some reason, it's not pulling in the seeds, but in production, it will see correctly. If you ever look at it and think it's wrong, reach out to support and we can advise. But let's say now at this point, someone's called me up and said, hey, I wanted to play. Okay, how do you get them in again? If you're going to allow them in at this point, okay, there is another way to manually add the player in as opposed to having to go back into Serve Tennis. Okay, you can from Tournament Desk, if you come to the Participants tab, we're going to have this Add Players button. Okay, Teams is more high school stuff. Don't worry about too much right now, or ITA. But you're typically going to be looking at Add Players. Okay, so you're going to add a player. Just like before, you can search their ID or search their name. And it's going to do the same. Let's pull the same list. What's kind of nice with this, you do have a little bit more filtering in here. So it's actually a lot more kind of flexible and easier to kind of add from here, to be honest, than the Serve Tennis side. Okay. So let's say I'm going to pick this player, this test account player. I'm going to add them in. Again, because I'm manually adding them, you will need to go back into Serve Tennis and send them a payment request. Okay, not sure why. This is a test environment. Let's see if I can add in myself. Okay, I'm going to see if I can add myself in. Again, I might hit the error just being in the test. Okay, super. Okay, so Peter was added. Okay, so now I'm going to come along to events. Okay, and now I'm going to come back into my event. And if I come into the entries, okay, the player we just added, okay, is going to be, there they go. 1 second, I missed a step. Sorry about that. We come back to my participants. What we do need to do first is to search for that player we just added. Okay. Make sure your filters are reset. Okay, so you've got no filtering on. So you've got to find that player, and now you need to go ahead and add them to that event. Okay, so you select them, add them to the event. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Because this is an unsanctioned space in our test environment, it's not flagging up, but I should be playing in a women's event. That's why. But in production, it will. Okay, again, I'm hitting a staging issue. It's getting this warning. Okay, if you hit warnings like this, reach out to support. But again, in production, you won't. Okay, but basically what you would need to do is add this player to the event. They would get added to the bottom of the alternate list. Okay, so if I come back into here, they would in theory be added to the very bottom of the alternates. So down here. And then what you can do, depending on your draw size and a few factors. So in this case, I do have a buy slot. So what I can do is I can click on that buy. and I can basically assign an alternate to that buy position. So I could either search or scroll, and I can find that player, but I want to put in the buy. Maybe it's the late addition I just made. I can assign the ultimate into the slot, confirm, but I want to make that move. And now that alternate we just added late is now added into that position. Okay, so it's kind of, add them in, add them to the event, assign them to the buy spot, and then you're good to go. Okay. Now, let's say player withdraws and you need to add someone in as alternate. So it's not necessarily a new player in, or you don't have the buy space. You can click on the player, but you need to pull out of the draw. Okay. And you can either remove from draw. If you remove the player from draw, it basically creates a TBD slot. You can then click into that and again, assign an alternate or assign a buy. Okay. So I can assign alternate, find my alternate player and add them in. Okay. So it's just clicking on that player, seeing that menu option, and then kind of following the flow from there. Okay. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to go to a doubles event. Okay. So I'm going to come into my doubles event. Now, what happens often is doubles players, one person might retire, you got to, going to move people in and out. That gets a little more complicated. Okay. So let's say this scenario, I'm about to do my doubles draw. And let's say one of these two players, okay, got injured and needs to withdraw. Okay. First of all, I can select on them, okay? And what I would do, okay, is let's come along and we can move them into alternates. Let's say this is before the draw is made. Okay, if we scroll down, we've got this actions, okay? So basically what we can do is unpair the player or replace the players, okay? So unpair will basically move them both into the unpaired space and withdraw one of them, okay? Or kind of the same way is replace player. Okay, so you could literally say, okay, I'm replacing this player with this person from the unpaired list. Okay, so it's selecting them. I can replace player, and now it's going to kind of unpair and then effectively repair, and I can kind of then move those players back into selected. Okay, so that's kind of the one way of doing that there. Okay, so it's basically just use those three dots. And a good trick to remember really in the system is anywhere you see three dots, think of that as kind of more options. Okay, three dots is more options. Okay, now let's say I've made the draw. Okay, so let's go through. We'll hit draw. We'll make the draw. I'm just going to say it's feed in championship. I'm not going to worry about seeding at this time. Again, I select my score format. And let's say I make the draw and then someone got injured playing singles. I need to do the same thing again. Okay, so what we can do is we can kind of click on the player. Okay, and you can basically replace the player or the team. So let's say the whole team pulls out. Okay, both players decide to pull out. You could swap that team. And if you've got teams or enough unpaired players, you could move another team in. Okay, if let's just say one player gets injured and wants to pull out, you can basically hit replace player. And that way, again, just like before, you're going to select which player you want to pull out, which player from kind of the unpaired or the alternate list that you want to bring back in, select that, and then replace the player, and then they get swapped around. Okay. And again, it's going to warn you if there's charges, the system won't double charge. So let's say that you had someone in, then you pull them out and then put them back in again. It shouldn't double charge. If you ever see that or get reports of that, let us know. But once a player has been charged for an event, they shouldn't be recharged if they get pulled out and then put back in again. Okay. But that's the key for doubles. Click on the player, select, are you taking the team or the individual player, replace them, and then select from the alternate list player as well. Okay, so that's the key to remember there. Again, if you get stuck, there's some guides up there. Always happy to jump on a call if needs be to help out with that one. But hopefully that one kind of helps with that flow. It can be finicky, okay? And what I will do as well, I'll send out a link to a test kind of tournament desk where you can go in and play around. Okay, you can't break it. I've tried, so you can go in and practice unpairing, pairing, and all that fun stuff as well. Okay, so that's kind of getting everyone kind of in. We've moved players a little bit around. If someone got added late, if someone withdrawn, if we needed to break apart doubles teams and repart them. So that's kind of all the admin work kind of done now. Now, hopefully, in our tournament situation, now we're good. We can kind of go ahead and start scheduling. Okay. So there's a couple of ways to schedule. Now, if you're just at one site, okay, super simple. You don't need to do anything else. There's kind of three ways of scheduling. First way, very simple. On the draw where it says not scheduled, click on that and you can physically put in the date. You can type it in if you want, or you can pick from the drop down. And if you only got one location, the system's going to know that when you set the tournament up. You would just select the location, hit save. Super easy. Okay. Now, if you're wanting to kind of do bulk manual scheduling, okay, and again, you've got one location, you can go straight to hitting these 3 dots at the top of the draw segments. So 3 dots, schedule matches. What this will do now is to present all the matches in the round of 32 or whatever round you selected. You can select multiples or all, and then that way you can say, okay, everything that's been selected is going to be scheduled at whatever date we put in here, whatever time, at this location, update. All those matches scheduled, and then it's going to hold the date and the time. You can then toggle to the next round, okay, or the consolation part of the draw if you want. Okay, so it's super simple if you've got one location. Okay, if you have multiple locations, okay, before you start scheduling, you will need to tell the system that. Okay, so what you will need to do is come to the schedule tab. Okay, and basically you need to come along and just hit manage facilities. Okay, so you're going to come in, manage facilities, so it's schedule, manage facilities. And if you don't see your additional locations set up, just hit add facility, type it in, and then you can give it an abbreviation as well, and then you can save it. Okay, now at this point, if you're not doing the auto scheduler, we don't need to worry about telling the system how many courts we have. I can go straight back in to events, and I can come into my event, and I can go ahead and repeat that process of scheduling again. Okay. I just got muted there. So once we go ahead and do that again, now I want to hit the dots. Again, it's the same process. I can select the events, and I can also now this time select that additional location from the drop down. Okay, so again, I've had multiple locations. We go schedule, manage facilities, add the event, and now you can select that location. And there's no limit to how many locations you are, or if there are, I've not found it. So again, if you're running a tournament for some reason out of 5, 10 satellite locations, you can just keep adding those locations. Okay. So that's all if you're manual scheduling, easy, okay? If you're looking to do the auto scheduler, you do need to do a little bit more legwork before you kind of get into that flow, okay? So if I want to do the auto schedule for this, I've got my draw set up. You will need to come along to the schedule tab, okay? I'm going to quickly show you how to do this. Okay, so you come to schedule, but for the auto scheduler, we need to tell the system, all right, what courts do we have and what times do we have the courts available? Okay, and it's going to guide you through a little bit. So if you see this yellow box, it's going to kind of tell on you what's missing. Okay, so I can come to manage facilities and I can see the locations we have. Okay, if it's turned on, it means I have access to that. If it's off, I don't have it. Okay, so I'm going to turn this one on, and now we need to do is tell the system what courts we have. Okay, so for Test Elena Club, I'm going to come to courts. And there's no courts right now. So I'm going to tell the system we need to add courts. And I'm going to say, I want to create 5 courts. And I'm going to call them court 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so whatever you put in here is just before the number. Then I'm going to tell our system I have the courts available from, say, 8 till, let's say I have them available from 8 till 2. And what you can also do is then tell the system I have them available again at a later time. So you might have them from 8 till 2. For some reason, there's a break. You get them again from 4 p.m. all the way through to 8 p.m. Some hypothetical situations here. So you really tell our system, I've got these courts between these hours. Okay. I generate it, and now those courts are made. It kind of clearly tells you the court availability. Let's say something happens and you suddenly don't have that court, you can turn them on and off. You can also hit the 3 dots on a specific court and edit that court's individual availability. So maybe court 1, I have all these days. Okay. But maybe court 2, I only have available Thursday and Friday. Okay, so you can really configure this to exactly what you have, basically. Okay, and you can see here, right now I'm viewing Thursday, I can view Friday, and I can view Saturday. So maybe Saturday as well, I want to just toggle off all these courts because I don't have them. So it's very easy to configure based on what you have available. And you will need to do this across all your locations. So I've done this for Test Elena Club. I need to come to courts, my second location, add them in again. I'm going to say I've got 6 courts. I'm just going to call them test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Total the availability. Hit generate, and again go through and just edit on any individual basis if needed. Okay. In this case, I'm going to say I'm happy with that. So we come back a couple of steps, and now you're going to see here, because we've told the system we've got courts, it's now giving us this kind of court slider. So in theory, when we get to scheduling matches, we can drop these matches on individual courts. Okay. One thing to do before you go ahead and run the auto scheduler is come along to match settings. Okay. Match settings is basically a pre-check to tell you what the system's going to use to calculate match times and rest times. Okay. So my women's singles, it's going to give me all the scoring formats permitted based on that level. And I think I did 3 tiebreak sets. So the system's telling me for 3 tiebreak sets, it's going to look as an average match time of 90 minutes with an average rest time of 60 minutes. Okay. You can leave the defaults. Okay. Or if let's say for some reason you're like, you know what, I'm running no ad, things are going fast. If you want to adjust it, you can adjust that time. Maybe want to take the time down. You can even add more rest time if you want to as well. So you've got some flexibility here if you want to make the changes from the defaults. If you get in a real pickle and start messing around and get stuck, you can always hit reset defaults and it just resets it back to the set defaults. Okay, so even if you don't necessarily make changes, I always encourage people to go in here and just take a look at it just so you're aware of what the system will be doing, okay, for your own kind of purposes. All right, if you do make any changes, just make sure you hit save. I'll come back. Okay, so from there, we've kind of added our courts. We've told it when we have the availability. We've kind of done a pre-check on times. Now we're good to go and schedule. Okay, so we're going to come to the scheduling tab right here. I'm just going to quickly clear out what I manually did. Okay, so let me quickly clear what I manually did. Okay, but I'm going to come to scheduling and I'm going to come to auto schedule. Now I get the days of my tournament. Okay, so I can expand them to see the locations I have but each of those 2 days that I've told the system. Okay, and I'm going to come to Thursday. So at Test Elena Club, I want to add some matches. So I'm going to tell the system I'm going to add the rounds. And depending on how you like to operate, you can filter this view by different events, whether it's kind of event name, singles, doubles, rounds, etc. Up to you how you want to view this, especially if you've got a really large tournament, it's probably beneficial to do it. But I'm going to say at Test Elena Club on the Thursday, I'm going to play my women's doubles round of 32 and women's doubles round of 16. Okay, hit confirm. Then I'm going to come down and say at Test Location, I want to put my singles event on, and I'm going to put my round of 32 singles draw. Note for this demo, I'm probably going to do a terrible job of scheduling the tournament. Okay, so just note I'm going to get rounds in there just so you can see how it works. What's also nice as well, if let's say you've got a very large draw and multiple locations, once you put a kind of round on, you do have these 2 options over here. So you've got move up or down in order, which I'll show you in a second, or this split. So let's say you want to split it into top half, bottom half, or quarters. You can go ahead and do that. And then you can even say, okay, the bottom half of the draw, if I hit these 3 dots, is actually going to still be on Thursday, but I'm actually going to move the bottom half to Test the Elena Club. So you can see you've got some flexibility here in kind of moving it around if you need to split up the rounds. And then you would go through again. Okay, Friday, I'm going to add in my quarters, and I'm going to add my semifinals. And then on Test Location, I'm going to go ahead and put in my women's singles, consolation, first round, etc. Okay, so you're basically going to build out all your rounds in the correct order. Now, at any point in time, you can hit save auto schedule, leave and come back. But once you're ready to go, you hit run. And then what the system will do, it'll read from the top down and schedule the matches based on the kind of court parameters you've told it. Okay. What's important to note is the system is semi-smart. Okay. So if you accidentally go ahead and put, let's say, the final, okay, I'm going to drag this up here, before the round of 32, the system will schedule the final before the round of 32. Okay, so it's important if you do the auto scheduler, take time to read through, make sure it all makes sense. Okay, I've seen this happen before. So it's going to schedule from the top down. So again, if you accidentally put the final first, it's going to schedule the final before all the rounds. Okay, so it's kind of as smart as you set it up as to a point. Okay, I would love to get to a point where it warns you, flags you all this stuff. It's not there right now. Okay, so if you're going to do the auto schedule, don't just coast through. Definitely before you hit run, take time to read down, make sure it all makes sense and it looks correct. Okay, so once you're happy, you hit run. The system's going to kind of do its thing. Okay, and it's going to schedule it. And then from the schedule tab here, you can kind of look over all the matches that are coming. Okay, what I always tell people to do is go into the drawer and definitely look over it and make sure it looks right to you. A good hack is you can either come to events, click on the events and open the drawer, or if you click on the event from this list here, it's going to take you right into the drawer. So it's kind of a shortcut right there. And then I would just say, read over, look over what you actually intentionally scheduled. Again, I did a bad job legit scheduling a tournament in this example, but just make sure it looks right. Okay. Next thing I always say to tell people to check is come to the reports tab. And this is going to be a conflict report. No matter if you use the auto scheduler or manual schedule, this is going to tell you if you're going to have an issue. Okay, so you can expand this by whatever parameter you want. And shockingly enough, oh, there we go. I've got some conflicts. Okay, so you can see here, if I look for conflicts in 4 hours, maybe that's a little extreme. You can see I've got some potential issues. Okay, so if I need to reschedule or make adjustments from here, I can hit reschedule and kind of tweak it if I need to. Okay, so this report is going to be your friend. It's always updating. So if you ever make adjustments, tweaks at any point in time, come back in here, run it, take a look at it. Okay. Now, for those of you who are kind of used to kind of the TDM order scheduler, I know you're going to ask to see kind of the occupancy rate. Are you overscheduled, underscheduled? It's not there yet. Okay, I'm hoping one day we get there. We started the work in the back end. It just never got finished off. So eventually, I hope, but before you hit run schedule, we almost have like a draft schedule button where it kind of tells you, hey, you're optimized, you're unscheduled, you're overscheduled, and kind of allow you to tweak before you run it. It's not there yet. Okay, right now it's kind of as it is, and it's kind of on you a little bit to kind of look over, double check the drawer, look at the reports, the conflict report, and see that. Again, I hope to get to that point where we have those TDM reports baked in. It's just not out there right now. Okay, I would just say keep using a product board to request it if you want it, and hopefully it will get bumped up the priority list at some point in time. But for now, the order scheduler, this is kind of how it is. It's great, but it does still require a little bit of common sense and a little bit of reading over just to verify everything looks good for your side. Okay, so just something to note of in there. Now, I see some questions in, but I'm going to process through it and come to the question in a little bit. Okay, what's kind of nice now is once you've kind of scheduled, no matter how you've done it, okay, if you've done the auto scheduler, you would have had to set up courts. If you manually scheduled and didn't add courts, you can come along, hit manage facilities and tell the system what courts you have at this point in time. Because then what it allows you access to is this ability to put the matches on courts. Okay, so what we have here is this upcoming day. Okay, and it will default to either the upcoming day if it's pre-tournament, and it will default to the current day if it's on the actual tournament day. You can see the order. So what's kind of nice from here, you can basically select the match, and you can say, okay, if I need to make adjustments, you can schedule it. You can move it, so forward or back, and I'll show you more in a second, and actually communicate to the players, hey, you're going to be first on ahead of the day, just be aware. Okay. What's also nice from here, if I scroll across to the right, you can assign the court. So I can assign court and tell the system, okay, put this on this court, and I can choose to send a text message to the player saying go to court 1, 2, 3, etc. So I can go through and process that. Now we do have some automated options here, so you can auto assign courts and auto send SMS. What that will do is if these are toggled on, when you hit assign court, it'll put the match on the first court available reading from left to right. So early rounds, you want to just get matches out there. You can just fire the matches on court really, really quickly. Okay, maybe later on, if you're kind of worried about show courts, stadium courts, etc. If you turn the auto assign courts off, you can assign it and then physically, okay, I want this match to go on this court and so on. Okay, so some nice tools there. What's really nice as well is this publish order of play button. Okay, so if you hit this, what you see is push publicly. Okay, so if I come along to this website icon here to kind of toggle myself to the front end, let me just move my Zoom controls out the way. Now, once you hit publish order of play, what the players will see under the schedule tab is effectively what you see. Okay, so they would see the day, they would see what matches Inferior is next on at what location. Okay, and they can also see what matches are currently in progress, so what matches are currently on court and what court they're on, and what matches are completed once scores have been added. Okay, so this is a great tool, and I would strongly suggest, maybe you've got a site with a TV screen, broadcast this to there, or if not, each of these links are unique. So in theory, you could create a QR code, put it around the tournament site, and have people just scan a QR code to see the order of play, who's on what court, and so on. Okay, so it's just some nice kind of tools you can have with the players during the event to make it easier for you, because hopefully it's less questions, or also easier experience for the players as well. Now, another nice thing you can do from the schedule tab, okay, is if let's say you're running behind schedule or you hit rain or something like that, again, you can select all the matches based on the filters you select here. And then with this option we showed you earlier on, you can move the matches. Okay, so I can literally select everyone. So I've got 20 matches selected. I could say move every match an hour later on this day, if I can change the date if needed. And I can say send a text message to all the players. So in literally like 4 clicks, I can select all the matches, move the times, and communicate with them saying, hey, your match has moved. Okay, so this is a really, really awesome feature. Okay. Maybe you just select them and then send them a text message first saying, hey, we're running behind, keep an eye out, we might bump your matches, or hey, it looks like rain, be aware. But this is just a great feature. But if you need to bulk move a lot of matches, just select 1 click, 2 click, 3 click to change the time, 4 click to do the text, 5, and you're done. Okay, so this is a really awesome feature that is probably not used as much as it should be. So if you're ever running a tournament, you run behind, you hit rain, whatever, this is a great way to get kind of the matches adjusted and moving along. Okay. Now, as results start coming in, we've got to enter scores. Okay. And there's a few ways of doing that. Okay. So if you're using this functionality of putting the matches on courts, you can either click on the 3 dots and you can hit enter score. And all you need to do is enter the losing score because it knows what format you're doing. Hit save and close. It's done. Okay. Easy. But if you're using this option, often, we run tournaments, you see players shake hands, then they pack their bag, they grab their drinks, they have a chat, then they take a half an hour to report the score. That can be annoying, okay? Especially running a tournament, you're on a time crunch, you want to get those scores in quick because you might want to get the next match out. So if you see someone shaking hands and coming off, you can hit these 3 dots and actually hit a wait score. That will free the court up, so that way you can get the next match on. And then once that score is finally reported, you can come under completed matches. You see I've now got this asterisk right here. I can then find that match, okay, but it doesn't have a score in, okay. And then what I can do is hit these 3 dots. Again, now hit the enter score. So now I've already got the next match on. Now we enter the score. Everything's good. Okay, so that's another way of doing it. All right. Now, where people typically get stuck with score entry is tie breaks, okay, and retirements. Okay, so tie breaks first. Keep it simple. Don't overthink it. You enter 6. The system knows you've got a tie break. Don't click anywhere. Enter the tie break score. Wait a split second. Then it's going to move on to the next set, and then you're good to go. Okay. Where people get caught up is they enter 6, and then they think, oh, why is it paused? Hit the next score, and oh, they didn't give it a second to move to the next set. Okay, so give it a second. Then the other place people get stuck on with tie breaks is I enter 6. I move my mouse and I click into that box to enter the tiebreak score. That click breaks it. Okay, that click makes the system think this was incomplete, so it won't give you the following set. Okay, so let the system help you. Less work for you. Now, the other area, retirements. Okay, so let's say this player right here was losing 4-2 and had to retire for whatever reason. Okay, enter the losing score, 2. The system thinks, all right, the set was completed, but you need to tell the system, but no, that didn't happen. So you click on the score that was added automatically, highlight it, and enter the score when the match was broken. Now the system knows, all right, we've got a broken match. What happened? Okay. So now you're going to select the dots against the player who had the action, had the retirement, had the injury, whatever it is. So you select the 3 dots and then you code it appropriately. So maybe it's a retirement, injury, apply. Okay. So that way now it's added. So I'll do it one more time. So let's say this person up here now was losing 4-2, retired. So I enter the losing score. The system automatically adds the set score. Click on the score, it was added automatically. Highlight it, enter the broken score. Now the system knows, all right, we got an issue here. What happened? Click on the 3 dots of the player who had the retirement, injury, whatever. Put the code in as appropriate. Hit apply, save and close, done. Okay, so it's just that one step to click, highlight, and then change. Okay, so that's one way of entering scores. The other way is from the draw itself directly. So let's say I come into my singles. Very simply, I've got this big enter score button right here. I tap on that, same score dialog box. 5, 5, done. Okay, so super easy. That's another way of doing it right in here as well. Now, a couple of things to note with score entry though, is let's say you're running and for some reason you do need to like shorten the match, rain, whatever, and you have permission from the section and whoever to do it. you can go ahead and enter score, and you do have this edit score format. Okay, if you hit that, it's going to change the score format for that one individual match. Okay, so maybe I change this one to a 10-point tiebreak game for whatever reason. I can do that, enter the score, and that's done. Okay, let's say you're running a tournament and you know what, it was so behind, we had rain in the next few rounds, we need to kind of play a shortened format. Instead of having to adjust it on each individual match card, where it says at the top of the draw, score format, edit, very simply you edit, and you can say, you know what, the main draw, consolation, or whatever, is going to change this to only this format now and save. So that way you've kind of adjusted that if needed. Okay, so let's say that's, great example is rain, you've got to just shorten it to finish it off. You can go ahead and change that to get all the rest of the matches in. Okay, and then if you need to change it again, let's say things suddenly move quicker, you can always hit edit, select it, and then rechange it back to whatever it was beforehand if needs be. Okay, so there's some flexibility around that. Okay, now the last place you can enter scores, which we've not touched on yet, is the the matches tab. Okay, matches tab is basically a list of every single match in the system that's going to happen at your tournament. Okay, you can search matches. You got a nice kind of fuzzy search right here. You start typing the player in, it's going to condense down. You can filter by event, flights, facilities, dates, etc. You can export all this data to a CSV file. And what's also really nice in this feature is this print matches feature. This print matches basically gives you the match cards. Okay, so it's going to show you kind of all the matchups. If you scheduled it out fully, you would see when the winner would next play and the loser would play. And it's going to give you all the matchups in here. Okay, so this is great if maybe you've got a place with spotty Wi-Fi, or you want to have it as a backup, or you prefer to do it pen and paper, then put it digital afterwards. This is where you would go in and print those match cards off. Okay, so again, a nice little kind of tool to have in your back pocket is matches, print matches, and it'll print based on your kind of filters here. So if I just want to print the matches for Thursday, I can filter it, hit print matches, and it's going to just print me the matches for Thursday. Okay, so it's kind of very tailored, very controlled in here. Now from here, you can also add scores in there, okay? But I will warn you, this is the hardest place to add scores, okay? If you want to do it, you would simply hit edit scores, and then you would find the match to enter the score. And again, you enter the scores, okay? You enter the losing score. But the system is always going to think the player on side one won the match. Okay, so if I enter 2 in here, it's going to think the player over this side on side 1 won 6-2, which is great if that happens. I can enter the score, I can actually hit tab, and it's going to toggle me down to the next box automatically. So you can see you can get scores in really quickly. But we all know it's not always going to be the case that the player on side 1 won the match. Okay, if that's the case, you have to shift the system's mindset, and shift is the key word there. You basically hold down shift, you enter the score, and you can see now it's shifted the score around to have the player on side 2 winning. Okay, so I'll do that again. Shift, 3, it's done. Okay, so that is where it's finicky. You got to think if you need to shift the side, shift is the key you got to hold. Okay, the other area here on tie breaks can be tricky. Okay, so let's say we get in a tie break. Let's say the player on side 1 won the tie break 7-6, 6-4. Okay, I would enter 6. The system opens a the tie break dialog. I enter the tie break score, but now I have to hit space. Then it gets me to the second score set, and then I enter that. Okay, so I'll be honest, like I say, unless you're comfortable, this is by far the hardest place to enter scores. You can enter a ton of scores really quickly if you're comfortable. It's just the most finicky. Okay, so if you want to practice, great. If not, you just got to know those little nuances to shift, to kind of flip which side won, and you've got to know the space bar to kind of progress from a tiebreak. Everywhere else, entering scores from the schedule or the draw itself is a lot easier. Okay, so just something to note in there. And then a last kicker to be aware of, if you ever enter scores in the matches tab, make sure you hit save. Okay, because I've done it. I've entered a whole 64 draw scores, forgot to hit save. It's a little annoying. Okay, so make sure if you do it reporting under this matches tab, make sure you hit save, otherwise you lose all the scores. Okay, but no matter where you enter scores, whether you enter it from the matches tab, the schedule tab, the draw directly, it's going to update across all possible areas of what you can enter scores in there. Okay, so you kind of pick the one method that works for you, utilize that. Okay, So that's kind of the end. I know we kind of bounced a little bit from some areas, but kind of trying to highlight the key kind of some more advanced areas in the system, things like swapping players and kind of getting the auto schedule going and things like that. I think another thing just to be aware of is no matter where you're on the system, it's the communication methods. Okay. I think the key one really is once you're in tournament desk, it's from the participants tab. Great way to kind of mass communicate to kind of players either before making the draw, whilst making the draw, after making the draw. These filters are your friends. Okay, so you can really filter out who you want that communication to go to, because you probably don't want to message the alternate players about rain delays. So you might just do selected, select them, and utilize the email or the SMS function. And I think the other key one to really recall, and I know I kind of touched on this a couple of times, is from that schedule tab, having that ability to put the matches on the court and have a text message to go to the players is huge. But also the fact that if you need to rearrange matches, if you need to bump schedule back or forward, or just communicate to a certain group of players that are upcoming on a day, again, these filters are your friends. You can filter by date, event, flights, and rounds, and easily select everyone to communicate to them whatever you need to communicate. Okay, a text message, even just saying, "Hey, I've texted you. Look out for your email. I'm going to send you another email." Or, "Hey, radar looks bad." It's a great way to get that quick, tailored communication out to your players, because we all know things go wrong sometimes running a tournament. These challenges happen, but if you can communicate to the players every step of the way, that's huge, and it buys a lot of grace. I think back from, I know when I've run tournaments, if things are communicated, it buys you a lot of grace. So use these tools, whether it's in the schedule and kind of communicating with players that are due to play that day, whether it's about moving matches or things like that, or the overall participants tab where you can build out a big email or kind of text everyone in the draw. It's really, really great. And, the over communication never hurts. Okay. Last but not least, I'm going to jump back to serve tennis. Now, if you've got the tab open, you can just toggle across, or under the settings tab right up here on the top right, if you hit that, what's kind of nice with this, you can open up website info. Now, this brings you back into serve tennis, back to the website page, which you already would have been familiar with when you set the tournament up. But what's important to note is you can update these details at any point in time. So when you create a tournament, you can put content in there. As players are registering, you can put content in there. As you're doing selections, as the tournament's running, after the tournament, you can always keep updating this content with whatever you need to. So again, you text, you email the players about rain delays, then go put it on your website. Again, the more communication, the better. You've always got the functionality to do it. Now, one thing just to be aware of is when you do save and update a website, it can take up to 15 minutes. Okay, we're trying to condense that down, but basically what it's doing right now is every 15 minutes, the system kind of cycles through to capture any updates kind of on the fly like this. So depending on when you save, sometimes it can be pretty instantaneously. Sometimes it can take 2 to 3 minutes. Sometimes it can take 15 minutes if you're really unlucky. I know this isn't ideal. Few of us are pushing the team internally to change that, but just be aware if you do update the website information on the fly, it can take 15 minutes for it to show online. Okay, so don't panic if it doesn't show right away. If it's not up there after 20 minutes, then reach out to customer support, but just be aware it can take that 15 minutes to kind of show up there as well. So I know I've gone on for quite a bit, so I've seen some questions coming in. So I'm going to come over to the Q&A cycle. There's some good ones in here as well. Okay, so Justin, is there a public tournament API? Presuming you might mean for developers to hook up into. We don't really do that. If you've got more details on what you're trying to do, feel free to shoot me an email and I can kind of connect you with any parties that might be relevant. Depending on what you're looking to do with the API, maybe there's something we can help you out with, but I'd need to kind of run that up the chain. So let me know what you're kind of looking to do with that API, Justin, and then we can kind of take it from there. Can you schedule one time around and check on the draws? Okay, great question. So on the auto scheduler, yes, you can go ahead and basically schedule a round at a time. So if you want to literally just do one round, save, and then come back, you can keep doing that. It's not a problem. It's not a kind of a one-stop shop. You can do one round, run it, check it, another round, run it, check it. You can keep doing that. What I've seen some people do with the auto scheduler is they just schedule, say, Saturday, save it, then leave it. Then maybe Saturday afternoon, let's go schedule Sunday, save it, leave it. So you could literally break it down by round, day, whatever you want. You can keep going in there and rerunning it, basically. That's not a problem at all. That's a great question. Assuming auto use schedules the Garmin system, it does. Yep. So it says it does use the Garmin schedule. Okay. On the auto scheduler. So that's what it does go on. Obviously, you can make those adjustments if you want with the rest time and the match times. I would just say, if you make those adjustments, just be aware of what you're doing. And when you do the auto scheduler, just double check it, right? Again, I hope we can get those reports in there for you guys to kind of see your court utilization and kind of the overall, how are you scheduling? It's just not there yet. Okay, so we'll keep plugging away for you. I hope to get it in there because honestly, it's something I hear so frequently. There's just a lot on the backlog right now. Going down for score entry, can you enter -2 to set with 6-2? No. So John, great question. So is John saying, can you enter like kind of -2 to set with 6-2? No, you've just got to enter the actual score itself. Okay, when you are entering scores through the schedule, through the draw or the schedule, so kind of you get that pop-up score box. Okay, if I come into one quickly. Okay, let's take this one. Okay, you can use the tab a little bit to toggle. It's not ideal. Okay, the best way honestly is just to come along. You do have shift. Okay, so you can hit tab and it kind of takes you to all the things. I don't recommend that. You can hit shift again to kind of move it up and down if you want. It can be finicky. I'd say if you're going to do scores like this, use the mouse, click, use the mouse, click that way if you need to. Or if you've got a touch screen, you can just tap, score. Okay, but you can't do that kind of -2 as such. You used to be able to do in TDM. Good question. John, yeah, shift. Great question. I just saw that one. You can shift. It's just a little bit more finicky. Okay, so again, I'll send that link out, but you can kind of get access to and the practice tournament desk site. So feel free to practice to get comfortable with what's going to be the most efficient and fast and accurate way for you on the system itself. Okay. Ray, like to sit down with you and some of your people to have any suggestions on format. Yeah, I think as Ray's saying, at any point in time, if you're running a tournament, if you want some individual one-to-one help, if you just get stuck, reach out. We know it's a lot. Okay, for those of you who aren't running tournaments frequently, you might come in here once and then 6 months later it's slightly different because we've got new features out there. Don't be strangers. Okay, we want to hear from you. We want your feedback, and we also want to make sure you're set up for success. I'm in here every day. I could unfortunately dream about running tournaments in this, which is kind of strange, but I'm in every day. I'm on autopilot in it. For you guys, we know this is just a small part of what you do. So there's no silly question. Okay, you've got support. They can help with questions, but if you want to jump on a call one-to-one with myself, I'm always happy to come on, screen share, run through scenarios. Like Ray, if you've got a large tournament, if you're trying to do something you're not sure, let us know. Maybe it can't, but we can hopefully get you as close to that as possible. And then if you've got great feedback or any feedback, we want to hear that and we can take that away. Can't promise we get the features in right away. There is a backlog. There's a lot of work being done on there, but the more kind of feature requests we get, the more we can kind of look at, okay, what are we hearing? What's the most requested feature? That's going to help us prioritize some of our development processes. Okay. And yeah, practice tournament site is great. Okay. John, does the schedule have avoidance options so it doesn't schedule a player when unavailable? No. So John, it won't do that. So again, I've heard people, if I'm understanding you correctly, say, hey, I know a player can't play mornings. I've got to put them in the afternoon. The auto scheduler doesn't do that. So you could go in and manually adjust that player's individual matches. If you're running a tournament where you're factoring in like, hey, this person's driving from this distance, I want them to play the evening, and this player can they play the morning, then I would suggest do it manually with the round where you go through, check off each individual box. That's probably going to be a better option. Again, request it. It could be kind of nice if in the future players can register, say, I want to play evenings. The system knows it and it schedules it that way. It's just not there yet right now. Okay, I think that's the questions. One thing just to note before we wrap up, I know we're right at time, is the demo site that I'm going to send you guys. Okay. We'll send it out. The section can, Tommy and Joanna can send this out to you guys in any follow-up. But when you come into the demo tournament site, what it might do, it might default to all tournaments being in the completed status. Okay, so hopefully this one loads up in a second. And this is a site for every release, we do push all the new features to it so you can practice, but it's just a tournament desk side. So if you come into here and all the tournaments, there's nothing inactive, just come to completed. You're then going to see all different types of tournaments, from WTN tournaments, adult, team, everything. You can then pick whichever tournament you want to kind of practice on. Okay, let's say this one, and then go in and play around with it. Often the draws are done. So you can kind of come along, just come into the events quickly. If a draw's been done already, just open it up. And then under draw options, you can kind of delete the draw, put in 3 words or 3 characters, and then you kind of got a blank state to start off again. Okay, but this allows you to practice building out draws of different sizes, see how round robin looks, practice scheduling, practice scoring. This is great. And like I say, if you leave and come back, it just resets itself. Okay, and you can't break it. I've tried. So if you manage to break it, congratulations. Okay, but this is just a great way to practice. Maybe you're running a tournament, you've got 15 players, you're trying to model, all right, what's the best format? What's it going to look like? Go in here and practice. Okay, you can withdraw players, add players in. It's a great tool to have in your back pocket. And again, if you're stuck, reach out. You guys have a great section, but again, I'm always happy to help out where I can as well. So I think we're right at time. I don't know, Joanna or Tommy, do you have any other questions, any other things you want us to show quickly at all? And obviously, if there's any questions, follow up. Always happy to kind of do another one of these, put some emails together, anything like that.
I think on our side, everything's good. I think we don't have any additional questions. Anybody else still in the chat box, in the Q&A?
But there's no one in there now. Listen, was typing. All right.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining, and thanks NorCal for you guys putting this on. I was glad I could come along. I know we threw a lot at you, so digest it. If you got questions, again, just let us know. If you want to recap something, always happy to jump on, walk through it super slow if you want to as well.